2020 has been a very challenging year for the residents of East Boston. We faced coronavirus, struggles for racial equality, and political polarization. But there are other persistent threats confronting us, including climate change consequences, such as extreme flooding events, extreme temperature heat waves, hurricanes, and snowstorms. This video offers highlights from the November 2020 Climate Resilience Assembly and puts a spotlight on some of the best local change agents, including our youth leaders, and it opens a dialogue on the need for an East Boston Resilience Network to amplify our community efforts.
And this is the sort of flooding we might see if a very, very, very extreme storm struck Boston in full force.
Welcome and thank you for joining us to listen and to share ideas about climate change challenges and how we as a community might personally and collectively respond in the event of a storm-related catastrophe. Today we have 4 objectives. We want to learn about community preparedness. We want to foster systems thinking via tabletop. We want to advance discussions with city agencies. And we want to build the case for an all-hazards East Boston Resilience Network.
My name's Rich Serino. I'm the former Deputy Administrator at FEMA. I served under President Obama during his tenure. And prior to that, I was the Chief of Boston EMS. But to me, one of the more important things is I actually started my career as an EMT working in East Boston. So as you start to think about bringing together the federal, state, local, tribal governments, the nonprofits, the faith-based, the private sector, and bringing all these folks together, what we call the whole community. And to me, how you're able to do that really helps in the response, but more importantly in preparedness and how to be resilient. But then there's really one group that's left out. And that last group, to me, is the most important group. Who is it? It's you. It's the public. To me, the real first responders is the public. But what we saw is the communities that came together, the ones that had the relationships ahead of time, fared much better in the recovery. Because the recovery is not going to just be a few days. It's going to be weeks and months, in some cases years. But having those relationships ahead of time can make a huge difference. You can make a difference.
Based on a survey NOAA conducted of East Boston residents with the help of NOAA's youth organizers, most of us want to be prepared, but are not. Fewer than 20% of East Boston residents have what they need in case of an emergency. And 40% said they would wait for help to arrive rather than take action. Our NOAA youth organizers were the field team for this scientific survey of 271 East Boston residents, designed and overseen by researchers for the NYU School of Global Public Health. They interviewed people in English and in Spanish, spoke to renters and homeowners, young and old, people new to the community, and longtime residents. Most East Boston residents believe in the weather effects caused by climate change and trust local officials and scientific authorities. But many people in our community don't feel politically empowered. They want to be involved and knowledgeable, but don't know how. NOAA is trying to change that. The NOAA youth organizers, known as NYO, completed a leadership curriculum that focused on climate science, communication skills, and ways to analyze information so they could be change agents. In addition to the community survey, NOAA also conducted a community-wide organizational network analysis.
What network analysis helps us do is model real-world systems. It allows us to see which organizations might play central roles, in this case, in the East Boston community. Here's a figure that shows the central brokers in transactional networks. And by transactional ties, what we're trying to get at is, whether organizations coordinated efforts with one another, they share resources, and if they share information. Now, what I want you to focus your attention on are the community focus groups, those yellow nodes, and how so many stand out as central brokers. However, you'll see that they're kind of on the periphery of those central brokers, right? And what we think is that there's an opportunity here to give community focus groups a real boost. They seem really well positioned to play an even bigger role, especially when we start to think about climate resilience and how organizations can help facilitate the community resilience of East Boston when it comes to climate change.
What can the community do together, and how should we be organizing those activities? Is there some mechanism that you can think of that would work to bring people together? I mean, Phil has talked about an East Boston Resilience Network, something that we've begun thinking about, and I'm curious to hear if any of you have any thoughts about what that might look like and what that could be.
I can see a resilience network informing people, being bilingual and bicultural.
I love the idea of an East Boston Resilience Network, because I do think we have the beginnings of the infrastructure for such a thing. If I think across what we've been doing for the last couple of years pre-COVID, when we've tried to pull together this community health initiative, realizing the major partnerships we have and the major organizations we have are all doing, say, food distribution and other things, that if we pull our resources together, we could achieve so much more.
There's a lot of things that you can do with funding for these, especially like some of the banks. Instead of giving out like pens and paper and all that stuff like that, really look at those private organizations to take their funding and buy something that is useful for those households and drill it all the way down.
A core focus of incident response within a community, offer unique benefits for incidents ranging from small scale to catastrophic disasters. And it helps the community stabilize.
We do think the institutions which shared their experiences here, the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center, the Boston Public Health Commission, and Boston's Office of Emergency Management have key roles to play. But as Rich Serino said, the best and most effective response involves the whole community. Everyone needs to be involved. To that end, we will be in contact with homeowner associations, local nonprofits, private sector companies, governmental agencies, and elected officials to see how we can create a resilience network which is of value to the entire neighborhood, from Orient Heights to Jeffries Point, from City Hall to Main Street, from the community's largest employer, the health center, to the smallest nonprofit, and from the pulpits to the pavement. This will be our whole community approach. If you have ideas on how an East Boston Resilience Network might work, please call or email me. We'll be working on this over the next weeks, months, and probably years. Thank you. Very best wishes for a healthy 2021.
Lights go out and I can't be saved. Tides that I tried to swim.